Hey everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through an unboxing and review of Transformers Legacy Leader Class Transmetal 2 Megatron. And this particular release of Transmetal 2 Megatron is from the Transformers Legacy figure line. But in terms of Transmetal 2 Megatron, that's pretty much his representation from Season 3 of Beast Wars. And you could almost say bits and pieces of Season 1 Beast Machines to a degree. But definitely his final Beast mode for Season 3 of Beast Wars. And this particular figure was released back in 2022 by good old Takara Tomy and Hasbro. So Transmetal 2 Megatron, who I'll just call Megatron from here on in, will be pretty much the last figure of my little Beast Wars theme saga, which has now spanned 16 weeks. 7 Predacons, 7 Maximals, Covert Agent Ravage, and now a second iteration of Megatron. It's definitely been a fun ride. I do hope we do get more Beast Wars based figures in the future, but obviously that's going to be a time and decision type process. Anyway, getting straight into the unboxing because he is a leader class and I don't want a leader class to become a 40-minute video. So here we have the front of the box for Transmetal 2 Megatron, sporting his robot mode, looking very nice and imposing. His dragon mode, which looks equally as good and imposing. So it's definitely some very nice artwork on the front of the box. The side of the box also has close-up of his dragon head and just a close-up of his head and little bits of his torso. So it's just basically some close-ups and reversals of these two images. And of course I had to knock the stand, just the usual legacy image that we saw back in the day. In terms of back of the box, Megatron in his robot mode, beast mode, standing up as opposed to flying, so he can be a bit of a bipedal dragon. 33 steps of transformation, so that's not too bad. So that's probably on par with the number of steps that I'm thinking Voyager Rhinox had, although I suspect Megatron will probably be a touch easier, given that a lot of his bits and pieces are probably not needing to compact into his body, with the exception of his torso. Be interesting to see how much of the transformation is similar to what it was on screen. Also looks like you'll have a nice little fire breathing effect as well, which is very nice. And I think some people do use it as a bit of a club. Definitely nothing wrong with that. It does look weird because it's a fire effect, but then again, given how he got his Transmetal 2 form to begin with, it's probably not too out of character. So now that we've had a look at outside the box, I will open up the box so we can have a better look at Megatron, his, I dare say, his single accessory, his manual, and then have a much more thorough look at the figure. And with Megatron out of his packaging, which I will say it's actually nice that the packaging has changed. So instead of the little plasticky type, not zip ties, but the plastic faux zip ties, they've gone to paper, which is actually feels a lot more convenient than what it used to be. So I thought that was a cool little thing. But I do know they're also trying to change the type of packaging material. Anyway, what was inside the box? Megatron, of course, his very sturdy accessory, and definitely a very lengthy manual. So definitely not too much in the way of inclusions, but that's to be expected. And I think the only reason why I think there should be more is because I'm so used to having done all the War for Cybertron unboxings and getting extra bits and pieces. So his accessory we will come back to later on. Likewise, Megatron, we will come back to you later on as well. Now, Megatron's instruction manual. This is going to be, oh gosh. This is unexpected. So, let's see what I can do. So the first part of the manual is pretty much just emphasizing how to attach his clubbing fire effect, which is okay. I'm actually surprised it doesn't show how to do it in the mouth, but that's probably more of a beast-like thing. In terms of his steps for conversions, so I did notice parts of his back piece and everything will be connected to his head. So I think some of that will actually be pretty straightforward. I was actually quite surprised some of the detailing on his chest is also his dragon claws, which is kind of cool and not too dissimilar from something that the Voyager Dinobot figure did to some degree. So the first 13 steps are pretty much just going through the transformation, mainly within the torso area. So I haven't really done much with the legs. So it's definitely quite involved by the looks of things, but I would say still has a little bit of similarities to his original transformation steps from his Tyrannosaurus mode, with some of the weird flippy side of things. In terms of the back of the manual, which now suddenly feels like I'm reading a newspaper. So steps 14 through to 33 does actually feel somewhat reminiscent of his Tyrannosaurus figure and on-screen version, with his dragon arm coming through in the transformation. His legs actually don't look too complicated. It's the usual gimmick of splitting at the waist and folding over. That's not too bad. And then, yeah, step 33 will pretty much conclude with the opening of the wings. We do have a few steps on just some of the beast mode articulation, such as his mouth opening and then attaching the fire effect into his mouth, which is very cool. Now I can imagine, since it's not included, him flying as a dragon. It's probably just a case of stretching out his legs and things like that, a la the artwork on the front of the box. So that was his manual. I will probably use that for sure. Okay, so Megatron, before we get too involved, so hold you in one hand. Here's your giant fire breathing mace slash fire. It's definitely very solid. Nice attachment point there at the base as well. It comes into, there we go. Let's have to hide Megatron for a brief moment. So that's the accessory. It's definitely quite solid and still pleasantly detailed. In terms of attaching it to Megatron, pretty much simple enough, and just attach it into his hand. Now, I don't know. I think that feels a little bit loose. Like, I don't think it's going to magically fall out, but that does feel a touch on the loose side. But still, he'll very much hold it in his right hand. And for sake of discussion, let's see, open the mouth, and there we go. That is his dragon head with the effect inside. Very nice. I don't know. I'm looking at his head, and if I just look at the head alone, I for some reason think of Alistraza from Warcraft, which is funny because Dragonfly is the current expansion. Not to suggest that Transmetal 2, Megatron, and Alistraza are one and the same. But in terms of the accessory, that is very, very cool. So you can definitely do a bit of a dual wielding for Megatron. To be honest, I think if I was going to have the effect, it would definitely be very much being used with his dragon head. So that's the accessory. We'll probably have another look at it once Megatron is in his beast mode. Now, Megatron, how are we going to do this? You're a leader class, so you're a bit of a bulky boy. So, Megatron from the, I dare say, the front. Trying to do from the side, the back. He does have some kibble, which is kind of hidden to some degree. The other side, actually, I can do it this way. That's the other side of Megatron. Obviously the front of Megatron, the other side. So it's nice that Megatron will definitely not be completely symmetrical. I mean, obviously his arms are going to be significantly different, but if you look at some of the detailing throughout his body, having a look at his legs first, you can see there's a good degree of variation there between his legs. While we're at it, that's pretty much Megatron, a bit of a close-up of his head and his torso. There's a bit there. It is a nice callback to his original Transmetal 2 figure, and of course his on-screen representation as well. I do like how they still recreated that little orangey dome thing as well. I still don't understand what it was for, but hey, it's there. Definitely not too bad detailing on his face. Probably a bit more menacing than what it should be. If anything, I just look at it and he actually reminds me more of he has more Megatron / Galvatron vibes from Beast Wars 2, which was the Japanese continuation of Beast Wars. Somewhat. Anyway, so that's a bit of a look at Megatron from a few different angles and a nice close-up on some of his details. In terms of colors, so he's very much definitely a type of red burgundy, I guess, with some of the purple accents coming through, which is a very nice combination of colors. A good amount of this gold as well to break up some of the colors throughout his body. And obviously some of this orangey translucent pieces as well. And I think his head has probably the most color with the black, the gold, the silver and the purple. And then encapsulated by some of the extra detailing there. But I will admit they have gone quite deep into doing the figure detailing for Megatron. So that is very cool. Now, articulation. Now, this will be interesting because Megatron is going to be one of those ones that suffers from weird articulation based on how things are connected. So, what you may have seen, and I think it's probably worth calling this out now, Megatron does have a little bit of kibble. So, his head is pretty much his dragon tail, and the front of his beast mode is on his back. So, thankfully, when his tail is down, it's not so bad. It does neatly, or attempt to be neat in terms of tucking away, but it's not, it's still evident, unfortunately. Why did I tangent that for the articulation? Well, Megatron's head, because of how it is, whilst it can move side to side, will have this entire section move with it. So not too bad if you want to move it side to side here, but bear in mind he has a tail attachment. So if you want to try and do a full 360, I don't think you can, because the tips of his, well, talons of his wings somewhat gets in the way. So Megatron is unfortunately limited to just lefting and righting his head. There's no real up and down motion either, which is unfortunate because for a figure of this size, I think having a nice range of movement for the head is always a nice thing to have. Before I get onto the arms, what happens with his wings? So they can go all the way out, at least this way when he's in his robot mode, and they can go probably that far back without becoming too cumbersome on his back kibble. So definitely a bit of kibbling there, but that's okay. I will admit I do like the wings, and I know it's a bit of a digress because this is more of a beast mode thing than robot mode, but it's very nice. And I think, was it when he first emerged from the lava, just the way that his wings came out and then tucked in as he was making himself known to tarantulas. Now, for arm articulation. Oh, this is going to be annoying because he's got asymmetrical arms. His basic arm will do a full 360 at the shoulder. Can also move out as well, which is good. He will have I think he's got a double elbow joint. Does he? He does. So there's the elbow joint up here, and there'll be the elbow joint tucked away into the top of the forearm. So that's very cool. So you can very much do a 90-degree, and then using that second elbow, he can bring his arm all the way up. In fact, it looks like it's part of his transformation for it to tuck away, probably tab into that. That's very cool. Does the hand do anything? Surprisingly, no. His hand will not have any further articulation. So when he holds his club weapon, the articulation will be pretty much dependent on the upper arm, the elbow, and there will be a rotation here. Can do a full 360 at the top of the arm. So that's pretty normal. But yes, no wrist movement, so any use of his fire club will have to leverage off the articulation in the rest of the arm. As for his other arm, which is his dragon head, he can do a full 360 at the shoulder. The arm will go all the way out this way as well. Can obviously go all the way down. So that's very cool. Now if you do a full 360 with the dragon head, just bear in mind it will impact some of the wings if you're having it too close. Now in terms of the dragon itself, because this is also his beast mode head, he does have some little independent bits of movement inside of these sections as well. So he can basically move all these sections around. In fact, I think they're probably all on ball joints. So that is actually very cool. His beast mode will definitely appreciate it, but I think his robot mode can leverage off some of it as well. In fact, if you really wanted to, he could probably talk to his head, which I feel he kind of did when he was a Tyrannosaurus. So it definitely has some nice articulation thanks to these individual segments in the neck/arm. We know that the mouth will also open. But that is very cool. So I think there'll be the up and down here at this piece. This piece will be a nice 360. So this one, I think. On that one, not as much. That one will be. That one will be as well. So definitely some good degree of motion there. Available for some very nice dynamic posing of the dragon arm. Very cool. Megatron, I don't know why, but you definitely get very infuriating sometimes being a toy with asymmetrical arms. Kind of hoping we actually get a Transmetal version of you, because you actually did follow some symmetry for a change. Now, is there any movement in the waist? Yes, there is. In fact, it's the good old clicky movement. So that torso will do a full 360. Interestingly enough, there's some very nice detailing even on the back here as well. So it goes to show how much detailing has been put into Megatron that you wouldn't necessarily look for. So now that we've done that, so all that's left now is the legs. Can he do a full splits? Yes, he can. So the leg will go all the way out that way. Can go all the way to the front like that. And I guess if you raise everything up, his leg can also go all the way to the back like so. But as I mentioned, you do have to pretty much lift everything off to be able to do that. So it does get a little bit messy when you do that. In terms of knee bend, so very nice knee bend there. Going to the back, there won't be any over exertion on the knee bend, so it will definitely be that straight leg. Now it does look like there will be 360 up here in the top of the leg as well, so that is very cool. So if you want to simulate stepping on something, I think you very much can. So we've done upper leg, knee. In terms of the feet, now funnily enough, the feet look like they should have some movement, and I think they do. So he's got some side to side with the feet, which is very cool. So definitely for wider leg stances, having the ability just to slightly angle the feet will be good. So the foot can definitely be brought forward, but it cannot be brought back, which is unfortunate, but still not too bad. Does look like there might be something in here, maybe not really, maybe not. Still, between a decent solid knee bend, the hips, and having that swivel up here in the upper leg is definitely quite impressive as it is. And with that being said, will Megatron stand on his own 2 feet? The answer is yes, but I think I've probably, there we go, just need to reorientate some of his mass. So that's a nice little view of Megatron in his robot mode. So overall, a good level of articulation for a leader class. I was a bit dubious that his arm would be limited because of some of his back pieces, but I guess if you put them out of the way, it's not too bad. Obviously I've been moving bits and pieces around as I've been transforming, well not transforming him, articulating him. I really do like how each of these neck components have their own independent bits of movement as well, so it's not just a single piece having a piece of movement here and a piece of movement there. So that's actually really cool to give it that level of independent motion. Very cool. We've already looked at the wings, but obviously these can go up. That'll be more of a beast mode thing. So that's very, very cool. So overall, I would say I'm actually quite pleased with Megatron's robot mode. Now that we've had a look at his robot mode, I'm going to try the 33-step transformation to put him into his beast mode, and hopefully that won't take too long. Now, I will admit, this version of Megatron does feel more like your harder plastic. So I'm hoping I'm not going to encounter some of the grievance I had with the first Megatron figure, which was his T-Rex, because it had some of that very soft plastic shell, which looked great visually. For me, didn't seem to want to work as well for transformation, but we'll see how things go. Anyway, enough talking. Let's get Megatron into his beast mode. Okay, and with Megatron in his beast mode, transformation wasn't too bad. And the reason why I say it wasn't too bad is because I appreciate with the whole rule of thumb of first transformation is usually the weirdest because you're getting a feel for everything. But I definitely wasn't expecting Megatron to be such a big boy. So, okay, maybe if I just fold down his wings. So we've already seen it, but that's the accessory in his dragon mode. So it does look a lot more suitable for a dragon to be breathing dragon fire. It does look very cool. And I will admit the detailing in the head is quite nice. So that is that. And as we already know, the mouth does move. So, Megatron, how are we going to do this? Because I think you have an even larger profile than your T-Rex did. So you'll definitely stand on your own 2 feet, which is good. So we can definitely do this. So if I was to do your wings fully out, you also have a very large wingspan. The effects and colors on the wings are very, very nice. So I guess since we're on that, so here's one of the sets of wings. So they do come out very nicely. It's a bit of a soft plastic, not a hard plastic, but I do like how they're all different looks. This one having different colors in them, but that is very nice for the wings, and that's repeated on both sides. Very cool. So try and fold them back in neatly, and that is what they look like when they've just been tucked back in. As for the rest of Megatron, so I guess if we look top down, so a lot of that nice burgundy red is coming through, the purple is still coming through quite nicely. And we do get to see a bit more because of some of the purple that's here on the wings and the... I suddenly wish I knew what this part of the wings was called, but either way, some of that purple is coming through. So that's from the top down, from the bottom. So we do still see some of the purple. The main torso area is somewhat different now in look because we now have this piece over the top of the torso that we saw from his robot mode. And saying that as well, we do get to see a lot of this gold-esque type trimming through each of his components on his tail and his dragon head. That's very nice. We also get to see a lot of that gold as well here on that torso area. Now, Megatron will definitely have no problem standing on his own 2 dragon feet. In fact, they are very sturdy, and I have realized through the process of transformation there is a lot more movement than I thought was actually in the legs. So there is what I thought was actual movement in the bottom part of the legs. It actually is. So the feet can actually move. It's more of a forward motion than a back motion, but you do have that. The knees we already covered, but it does make a bit more sense now as to what the knees are trying to do. And that roll in the quote-unquote ankle. But yes, Megatron in his beast mode, his feet are probably even sturdier than his robot mode, which is very cool. Head, we already talked about that. His beast mode arms, not nice amount of articulation in them, so they do have a full 360 at their own little shoulder. The arm can move up and to the side that much as well. There's also a bit of a shoulder bend in there as well. And the claws can rotate at their own wrist and can also move side to side. So Megatron's Beast Mode claws, hands, potentially has more articulation than his robot hands. So that's very cool. Now granted, a lot of this movement is because when he does transform into his robot mode again, these claws do form some of that detailing on the side of his chest, so that is to be expected, but that is also very cool. Definitely more arm motion than he had in his T-Rex mode. In terms of his head, it's very much the same as what we saw in the robot mode. I won't go through that too much, but obviously it does mean that because of how they have done it, he does manage to pull off some nice dragon poses, well, poses, movement with his dragon head. What we didn't see much of before was his tail. So his tail does operate quite similar to his head. So each section is basically its own little I can't think of the word right now, but yes, it's its own little segment. Segment will do. So that is very nice. And I do like how they've recreated the detailing of his tail. It's unfortunate these don't actually move, because I do know he has used this as a bit of a offensive claw weapon as well. I think he actually used it on Optimal Optimus. But that is very nice how they've done that with the tail. So his tail will definitely have some flexibility options when I constantly keep banging things into the stand. Megatron, your wings are getting in the way, whether you like it or not. One thing I will add, because I didn't really do much about it, so the movement in the hips is definitely very nice within his beast mode because of how wide those legs can now go out. So definitely any posing with his legs will be very, very cool to do. It's unfortunate that you're actually a lot bigger in profile than I was expecting, Megatron. Standing on your own 2 feet, I think we've already covered. Definitely not an issue. So yes, definitely overall, I'd say colours wise, you definitely look very cool. So it is nice to see a lot more of this gold coming through. The detailing is very nice, which is cool. And yes, I'm quite like what they have done overall for his beast mode design for this one. Definitely very enjoyable. And I actually am surprised that there's a good amount of articulation in it. I mean, looking at, especially with all the Maximals, who were all some type of mammalian creature, there wasn't a lot of articulation in the beast mode, so Megatron is actually a very nice, pleasant change in that regard. Now, how are we going to do this, Megatron? Because you were a lot bigger than I thought. So I wonder, can you possibly strike a bit of a thinking pose? You can definitely strike a bit of a headache pose. Okay, let's do this. So, final thoughts, and I will cover off the transformation. In terms of robot mode, visually, very nice. Colors are good. The details are definitely very nice. I'm very surprised by how much detailing they've actually put in. But in saying that, here's a Transmetal 2. So the Transmetal 2s did have a lot of non-symmetrical details throughout, so it's very nice that they've actually recreated that. Transmetal 2 Dinobot, please. So visually, very nice. Quite happy with that. The accessory, It's nice that it can act as a club. It still feels a bit weird, but it is nice that it's dual purpose as both a handheld option as well as a effect for his dragon head. Articulation is actually quite solid for Megatron. So it's nice, especially with the dragon head. The segmentation in each of those neck pieces really goes a long way. It's unfortunate he doesn't have a swivel in his wrist, but part of the transformation, I guess I can actually understand why it doesn't. Probably complicate things. The legs have also got some very nice articulation in them, so I think from a robot mode perspective, dynamic posing for Megatron shouldn't be too bad. If I did have to say anything in terms of some criticisms, it's unfortunate that his head doesn't have more articulation. The left and righting is good, but it would have been nice to get a bit more up and down and things like that. But given his head is pretty much attached to his tail, it can appreciate why the limitation is there. Other than that, I would say his robot mode, very, very solid. Definitely quite liking it. Is it an improvement over his original Transmetal 2 figure? I would probably say yes. Now, as for his transformation, before we talk about his beast mode, the transformation actually isn't too bad. Being the first time I did it, I'd expect it to be a bit clunky. I think now I will appreciate things better. The torso section actually isn't too bad. Although when I transform him back into robot mode, it'd be interesting to see how I struggle with his hands, because they do form part of his actual visual aesthetic in his chest. The legs and his tail and head took me a little while to understand, but I did finally get there. I think one of the steps that the manual shows doesn't necessarily translate very well to what you see during the transformation. But other than that, transformation, pretty solid. I think once I've done it another once or twice, it'll become a lot more ingrained, and I'll definitely appreciate it more. So transformation, definitely not too bad at all. The first time will always be a bit of an interesting one, but I think after that it's actually not too bad. As for his beast mode, visually once again, really, really nice. The colors are good. Definitely a lot larger than I was expecting. I do like how there's some really good articulation, mainly because they're also dual usage. His legs, the neck for his dragon head, the tail, and even his dragon mode arms. So I would say from a beast mode perspective, he's probably the most articulated beast mode for anything within the Beast Wars side of things. Even the wings is actually really good. It does add a lot of width to the figure. Huge improvement over the fact that he doesn't have any of that weird soft plastic that the Tyrannosaurus version of Megatron has, so he definitely did feel he tabbed a lot better. Now I have noticed proportion-wise, there are a few things that felt a little bit weird with Megatron, and I think that's also what confused me with some of the transformation. He does have a little bit of a gap thing happening here with his neck. Would have been nice if that was actually tucked in a little bit more, unless I've actually unintentionally mistransformed him, which is also a possibility. It doesn't look too bad from certain angles, but if you look at it side on, you can notice a bit of that gap, and yes, that actually is his robot hand that is tucked away in there. So that bit, probably a little bit on the clunky side. That's not too bad, but it does feel like it has altered the proportions of his neck ever so slightly. Like this could have been higher, or this could have recessed in a bit better. I was going to say his legs were weird, but once you figure out the actual transformation, the actual legs actually aren't too bad. I mean, everything does tuck away nicely. His head is there as well, but it's probably not overly obvious. And I will admit, his detailing on his back is very nice. And the more I look at it, who knows, maybe they will do a heavy retool and make this into Savage Noble. Colors are definitely there. scale-wise would probably make sense. Savage was a weird dragon type thing. But anyway, weird speculation aside. So I'd say of his two modes, his beast mode probably has actually fared quite well as well. Just with some of the criticism of some of the proportions with things. But overall, I would say it's quite solid. It is nice that he can use his little fire breath item as well. So yeah, I would actually say I probably prefer Transmetal 2 Megatron over Season 1 Megatron. Although to be honest, Megatron in all three forms was actually really good regardless. Given he was a late 2022 release, I would actually recommend quite highly Transmetal 2 Megatron for any collection, whether it's Puritan Beast Wars across the board, Predacons, Megatrons, things like that. He is overall been a fairly solid figure. With some of the little criticisms, definitely they're not deal breakers. They're unfortunate, but they're definitely not deal breakers. I think overall he still has a lot of general positives that makes up for some of the areas where he does lose a few points. So yes, overall very happy with him, and I'm definitely going to look forward to doing some shorts for Megatron, just because his sizing here, and I can actually better accommodate the sizing there in the shorts than what this review has done, which is unfortunate. And plus I'll probably even do a short with Season 1 Megatron as well. So that's going to be interesting. 2 leader class Megatrons. This one being probably the easier one to work with. That will pretty much be it for the unboxing review video, only because I have looked at the time and went, this has actually gone for a bit longer than I was expecting. But yes, definitely overall, solid figure. I do recommend, if you have been umming and eyeing, he is a worthy addition to the collection, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who already have him in the collection, given he has been out for a while. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video, especially if you're still watching at this point in time. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, link below, and as I've done with all the other previous Transformers content, there will be some parallel shorts on the channel, as well as over at Instagram as well, just for some better shots of Megatron. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video. Next week, I think I know what I'm recording. I just haven't fully committed to it, but I will try and put the teaser image up at least a day in advance, just to show what that video will be. Until then, take it easy, and if you're here for the Transformers content, I'll see you next week. Otherwise, I will see you in another video. See ya.